off with electronic locks, currently sitting at 67%, but expected to jump up to 87% over the next 2 years. And have an opportunity here for the panelists to talk about what are they seeing, what are the challenges, what are the benefits associated with this, why do they think this trend is jumping up as high as it is. So who like to talk first about locks? Catherine.
Speak about them. You mentioned locks as a mainstay, and I think that's right on the money. These are standard today. So if you're developing a project and you're thinking about smart locks, I'd push you to think a little harder about not doing a key system at all. You know, what we're looking at, and there's some discussion about this morning about latch and some of those players that came and went during COVID and otherwise. We're looking at the mainstay, the tried and true hardware. So looking at Schlage, ASSA ABLOY, these are awesome options. And then using something on top of these like Brevo to get, as you said, curb to couch. I loved the conversation this morning about revenue share as we look at services within our building, especially working in a Class A niche. That's something that we're really focused on as well. So it's not just your resident getting into their unit, but their dog walker and, you know, people dropping off groceries. That sort of thing is where we need to be thinking as more and more residents are thinking about their time as money. And that's going to be a big generational shift, I think, that we're all going to continue to see. So again, that curb to couch, it's not just about your locks on the doors, but how are they getting up the elevator? How are they getting into the front door? So being a lot more mindful about what that roadmap looks like I said, not just for residents, but also for other vendors that are essentially working for your residents.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've been seeing a lot of is talking about what is the succession plan look like when you take over a community that has smart locks. So do you know how they operate, how they're going to work, who has the fobs, where are they, how you transfer them? It's been a really interesting conversation we've seen as someone who often is supplying the fob or the information that they need. That we see third-party management often take over a community and then they say we don't have all of the access that maybe we needed. So just making sure you're planning for that as well. You have the technology in place, or if you're doing your due diligence, what does the succession plan look like as you take over that tech?
Catherine, are you guys using fobs, or have you transitioned over to something that uses phones?
We use both. So the fob has not gone away. I think we've kind of clung to that a bit as we have a very wide demographic and even psychographic that's coming into our projects. But the important thing is that if we're not using phone access, that those locks are Bluetooth enabled so that you are future proofing. Should in the future you want to do that, you can.
And what are some of the benefits from cost efficiencies by having the locks, the smart locks?
Well, I think of what you mentioned, and we've taken over assets too, where our teams didn't have the ability to program locks in-house. So certainly cost efficiency, but really I think about space. So there's no big key kind of system in your lobby. Every time we're programming office space, it gets a little bit smaller, and I'm sure a lot of the multifamily folks in here can relate. So how can we make our office space more efficient as we have retail and more uses on ground floor? And really it's a customer service, right? So if someone's locked out, if we can't get them a fob quickly, those are problems when we look at renewal and customer satisfaction in general.
And as we continue to look at centralized leasing as a model, I know it is like the naughty, dirty word to say out loud, but we all know that it's getting more and more popular, and it's really coming to, I think, impact more of us. Smaller offices will mean that to provide that customer service, you have to be able to have those smart locks and the ability to give someone entry from a location maybe that's a state away from where the property is physically located.
And also the various touring options. So what we saw during COVID is people want all of it, and they still do. So they're not going to 8 communities anymore, 7, 6 communities. They're shopping 6 online, they're doing some virtual touring, and then they're going to see 2, maybe 3 in person. So we've started to do not only, a virtual 360 or walkthrough FaceTime style tour online, but also There's the self-guided tour that we're doing, and then we're also doing a second tour where they can go in on their own. So all of, the smart locks are key to all of this. We're seeing that folks want to come in with their significant other or their roommate, and they want to measure for their couch, and they don't want a leasing consultant standing there in the kitchen, kind of big brother watching over them as they do that. So allowing them to have that autonomy, but also it's saving our team's time. We don't need to go on a second tour necessarily with a prospect. As staffing becomes more and more challenging and expensive, that's a way that we can kind of pull back some of that responsibility and refocus it on service or other things.
Gotcha.
Brandon, I've actually heard some builders have buyer's remorse. Some of these projects, new projects might take 3 years in the pipeline, and they'll make a decision for a traditional electronic lock, which is not cloud managed.
Right.
And then by the time they get to market, they just see all this lost value. And not only the value for the tenant to use third-party services and dog walkers and deliveries and share codes, but just maintenance savings, right? Yeah, so all of that headcount they can reduce by providing more cloud-managed access to their own internal services, in addition to touring, but all of the services.
Yeah, I've heard like maintenance techs being able to, the resident has assigned a service ticket for something to be fixed. The maintenance tech can get that key code transferred automatically to their device, allow them in. The resident is being notified that the maintenance tech just opened your doors in there for this period of time. The simplicity of that and not having to go back and forth to get keys for maintenance.
It's just things like low battery alerts, which is, if you listen to consumers, the worst thing they fear is that they're going to get locked out of their apartment because that lock, that old electronic lock, has stopped functioning, and then they have to sit around and wait in the hallway for a maintenance guy to come and recharge.
Whereas
it.
through the cloud, it's being notified, change this battery, you go back and change it before.
As a regular maintenance schedule, and guarantees the experience.
Makes sense. Next one, alarm systems. This one's a little bit near and dear to my heart, just having been in this industry for quite a while, going from 65% to 87%. I think one of the things we see was in your presentation yesterday is that for many companies, this is becoming the hub into the home. That this is the device.
Single family builders for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
How does that vary as we go into multifamily? Why do you think this is?
Well, it depends upon the architectural design of the multifamily, right? So if it's kind of the new stylized urban, with the perimeter access, a lot of that's done with perimeter access control, right? You're nodding because you make these decisions all the time. If it's more garden style and they're spread out, and there's more pedestrian coming through, then you may see an offer of a alarm system, but it's relatively uncommon in most multifamily, except for those that are built to be, privately owned. I think.
Other thoughts?
I agree with that. I think from alarm system, really just kind of a security. So you're kind of securing the perimeter of the building if it's a podium wrap or a high rise or any of those build types. Now for in-home security, I have seen us going more towards some in-home security for any of our, we call them live work, it's just a marketing term, but anything that has a door that faces the street. And so in those particular units, we have been going back and doing some more of the traditional alarm systems.
And I am curious to see how this will continue to increase as more and more people want to get outside. I'm sure we've all seen that, right? We are so tired of being cooped up. So I think when we're developing more communities, we're going to see a lot more of an internal, external access points, right? So you can have doors that move to the sides. You have more indoor-outdoor space. We're really going to have to figure out there how to have a great alarm system. I'm saying this as a person who would want one if I was in that apartment unit, right? That we looked out to a beautiful greenway or green belt. But as people continue to push for more outdoor space in that indoor-outdoor living situation, I think we'll have to be aware of this.
Yeah, we've had some consumer research on like perimeter intercom systems, and the cloud-based, video-based. Their guests can come get instant access, and we've had consumers say, "I will never move out of my building now." Now I didn't know I needed this, but now that I have this, especially in like highly urbanized settings, right? Because where security and street-level security is like a really big deal, it actually creates kind of a retention. Retention value is that why would I move to another building if they didn't actually have this? So it's become a pretty valuable.
Lock in and reduce churn. That has a pretty significant financial impact on a company.
For sure.
Other thoughts on alarms?
Just the death of the drop-in visitor is amazing, right? It makes me thrilled.
Next one, bulk managed Wi-Fi. I promised this morning you'd see it mentioned. Certainly a jump here. It seems that in multifamily there was for a while just the assumption that, yeah, bulk managed Wi-Fi makes sense for student communities, for student housing, but it's really starting to push its way into other apartment style dwelling. Why is that? And what insight do you have? I think, Catherine, you had a few things you wanted to share.
Yeah, and I have a slide actually right after this one. So I wanted to share a couple things that I had put together for this and our firm has done by way of research. So I'll just start kind of a step back. COVID happened. We saw a lot of accelerations of change that was already taking place, one of which being working from home. We did a large study. We have an advisory panel of kind of our best residents throughout the portfolio. It's about 2,500 people that we pulse survey twice a year. Super beneficial, the information that we get from them. So I would highly recommend that you're asking your residents, if you have a portfolio, what they're looking for. What I want, what you want, what your boss wants doesn't really matter, right? So looking at some of the insights, so we said, what would you use if it was available at your community? And this was larger spaces, so amenities versus in-unit, but we'll get to that piece. And number one is outdoor spaces set up with power and internet. So we said, oh wow, do our courtyards even have plugs, throughout them? No, most of the time they don't. So that was one thing, really simple, but does our internet span to some of these exterior spaces? And it's not just a courtyard or a rooftop. We're building these huge mixed-use developments with plazas and areas where we want people to be able to kind of live in and out of, especially as our units are getting smaller and smaller. So thinking about bulk or managed Wi-Fi, that's giving that allowance to residents to work and move throughout the building on a really strong and secure network. As you can see here, the second one is secure Wi-Fi. I live in DC, so we have a lot of people working for the government, they're consultants working for the government, so these are things that are really important to them and really top of mind too. When you look at units, which we have, I think, on the next slide, same thing, outdoor spaces with power and internet. Are we putting power on our balconies? Not always. So that's one thing that we're starting to try to accommodate if possible. And then internet, is there internet expanding outside? Again, specialized high-speed internet. So, and if you don't have the opportunity to go bulk, how are you differentiating your offering? We're showing Starry here, which is a fantastic company that does like a $50 internet package really fast. The folks who created this hub come from Apple. They have a great product. If you've never looked into it, I think it's worth it. But when it comes to bulk and managed, where you can really move seamlessly throughout the building, we love Lux Speed, we love White Sky. Those are kind of our two leaders in that space. And then as we start to think about smart homes and hubs, this is the base. If you don't have this foundation, the rest of the smart technology, it's hard to take advantage of it. And I'll talk about that a little bit when we get to the hubs. But if your unit's offline, how are you going to take advantage of the operational efficiencies of a smart home? So smart, bulk Wi-Fi, what's it called? Community wide Wi-Fi is the first step as we try to think about making our buildings smart.
Makes sense.
And I think we, as an industry, we kind of missed the mark because we got all into IoT before we really had the base or the platform for those devices to connect to. So we're trying to use cellular in all of these high-rise buildings. Not that we build things with bad cellular reception, but some buildings there may be a little poor cellular service. So then you have a poor experience from an IoT perspective. Managed Wi-Fi will allow you to just have that base. You can load all IoT devices on it seamlessly seamlessly connect and interact throughout the entire building. It kind of surprises me it took luxury this long to get to it when students been there for 15 years or so. But
Well, there always seemed to be the viewpoint that like, well, why should I pay for them for all their stuff? You know, it just benefits them, where clearly with all the other devices we've talked about, the operational efficiencies that come with these smart devices, it benefits you to be able to put those devices into their units. Plus, from a support standpoint, it just makes it so much easier.
Well, it could be a revenue
Instant on.
opportunity. You know, it's a revenue opportunity in addition to a better user experience, better turnover experience for move-ins, move-outs, and then the support because they have visibility into the network. And so they can see exactly, you know, where problems are arising and address those things faster. So.
And I think it could also be an incredible brand marketing opportunity too. If you know that I live at this community and this has exceptional Wi-Fi service that always works well no matter where I am, and you're going to move to another city, another state, I'm going to look for that same company again. And so I think there's a lot of applications where it could increase your revenue overall and make sure that you have residents who want to stay with you. How many of you have heard the Starbucks thought of like third place? Are you guys familiar? So Starbucks marketed themselves as being like the third place, right? You want to go to work, you're going to have a home, and then they want to be the third place you go. So I really challenge as you develop communities or retrofit communities for you to look around and say, where in my community would be my residents' third or fourth or fifth place, right? Where could they go work and take their laptop? Is it the balcony, the courtyard? Do we have the capabilities for them to be comfortable? Even just do we have the setup? Like, are there small tables, small areas where people could get out of their apartment, because outside is going to be, I think, the biggest future trend that we see coming up.
And I think tonight, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll be able to see some of this in the shared spaces, that there's a lot of design really accommodating this opportunity. So it's coming to fruition already. Certainly, student housing, I think, helped pave the way, but it's definitely feels like it's time to make sure you're adopting that in other settings. Any other thoughts on this? Okay, smart appliances. So you're saying it's table stakes, that all the appliances are going to have it. Is this another example of, well, I don't really care about someone's refrigerator, I don't really care about someone's dishwasher, why do I as owner-operator care whether or not they get it on the internet? Where's the value there?
Well, I think they care about energy management for sure.
Okay.
And I think they care about telemetry data for malfunctions and error codes, you know, to head off more costly repairs. So I think the kind of the first value of connected appliances really has been on that maintenance side, right? It's all that telemetry data and all of that. I think there are more features that are connected and enabled that consumers are awakening to, but we're still kind of on the front end of that. You know, just the remote access to set the oven timers and those kinds of things. Some of them now will have water leak sensors, you know, built into them. So there's that maintenance issue and that operational savings for a dishwasher and a refrigerator especially, where washing machines, where a broken water line can be catastrophic for multiple floors below. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value for property managers, maybe even more so than a private residence, strictly because there's all of this, you know, inventory of appliances to manage and to do so efficiently and to keep them all running. And of course, we know that appliances and appliance finishes, apart from being connected, have always been a really big part of the upsell for multifamily. And so now it's a tech-forward appliance, product design, industrial design is really important. Again, even apart from connectivity, does it look current? And especially if you're looking at a retrofit or a remodel, one of the most sure ways is to upgrade that apartment is to put a new appliance package in there and offer some tech would really make an old property look new again.
Other thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts, clearly. But I think, you know, to Justin's point about really making sure you have infrastructure in place, that this is going to be one of the places where you can future-proof your communities and make sure that the day when these smart appliances actually do something that I care about, which would be, I don't know, tell me that I need X ingredient for my recipe I plan to make that night because it's not in my refrigerator. You know, right now this tech I think is kind of a, ooh, cool, look at that, but it doesn't do anything for me specifically or for your residents specifically, but you want to have the infrastructure in place so that when it does, you're the first one who can adopt it, and really make sure that you have the availability for your network to handle all these smart devices.
Yeah, and I would say, so smart appliances are something that used to scare me to death, because if you don't have managed Wi-Fi, then who's accepting the terms and conditions for those appliances when they first go in? How does that transfer from one resident to the next? It could be my attorney that got me completely paranoid about all of the smart appliances.
That's their job.
He's
Yep.
good at doing that. And so, yeah, so if you don't have managed Wi-Fi, then you need to be careful of the smart appliances, how they're connecting, how you're resetting them, how that data is being stored or transitioned from resident to resident. And that's why I think just kind of the ecosystem, managed Wi-Fi with a provider that is, an ecosystem that's kind of managing all of those devices and managing those terms and conditions, so that the minute they move in, the new resident moves in, they can use all the appliances. They're connected already. Same with lighting, shades, anything you're doing in the unit needs to really just be there, set up day one.
Okay. Sounds good. Other thoughts on smart appliances?